totally hoping I wasn't going to go first. Alright, so I'm Jason Brown. I'm doing my presentation on Rough Seas canvas animation, how I went about doing it. So what I did was I participated in the JSBin competition. Remy Sharp was holding it for JSBin's birthday. What you had to do was, there was a bunch of animated GIFs, and you had to be, or you could be, if you were the first one to recreate them using web technologies, you'd get a sticker, and then if you did 5, you'd get a shirt. So since I do canvas demos all the time, I was like, why not? And so I ended up doing 5, but this is by far the best one, I think, anyway, that I did. This is the animated GIF, Rough Seas by Mr. Div. And I ended up choosing canvas to do it because, for one, it kicks ass, and I could have used WebGL, but doing pseudo 3D is fun. It's a challenge using Canvas 2D, and I totally have an unhealthy canvas obsession. If you go to my CodePen page, you'll see tons of demos I've done with it. So this is a breakdown of the animation and kind of how I went, my thought process when breaking it down to figure out how I was going to do it. First of all, you notice obviously the 3D grid moving around kind of like water. There's some lighting going on. There's the pulsating sun, and it's kind of blurry. It's got the motion blur, and there's the particles in the background. And then I don't know if you guys can notice or can see, but there's like a noise grain filter, and then a really subtle gradient around the whole thing. So I'll go through each step real quick. So what I started with was the 3D grid and the lighting, because that seemed like the most challenging and probably what would take the longest. I used perspective projection to do the 3D grid, and for an awesome explanation, this book, Foundation HTML5 Animation with JavaScript, is great. For the lighting, what I did was I cheated. Basically, each grid portion, like the higher the Y value, the lighter the color, and the lower, the darker. The waves, I just changed the Y based on the sign. Each grid piece was assigned a random value initially, and I just change that. And then if you guys look at my presentation afterward, I've got a bunch of links, here's a bin right there, a super simple 3D example. Then the next thing I moved on to was the sun, and like I mentioned before, what you guys saw, the sun had the motion blur, and fortunately motion blur is really easy, or any type of blurring is really easy with Canvas. All you do is set your fill style to RGBA, and then set your alpha to something greater than 0 or less than 1. And then you use fill rect to keep filling over it, and then it slowly erases, giving you a blur effect. So then I went on to the pulsating sun with the particles. The particles, all I did was a really simple emitter. They start behind the sun. As they travel, as the distance increases, their alpha decreases, and then they just reset once they're completely transparent. The sun was really easy. It's just an arc that increases and decreases its radius. The most challenging thing probably about the whole demo was, if you guys noticed, the sun doesn't increase and decrease smoothly. There's that pulse in there. That was probably the most challenging thing to figure out, but it wasn't too bad. And then the next thing I did was the noise filter, which is also very easy to do with Canvas. It's just a bunch of filled particles. But what you have to do, you can't do it using fill recs or lines or anything like that because it's crazy slow. You have to access the pixel data directly. And what I do is create, I think, 6 canvases in memory, fill them with random data, and I just have them cycle every 200 milliseconds or so, and that's what gives it that grainy filter effect. And then, if you notice, it's getting closer to looking like the actual animation. And then I've got an example of how to do noise layers if you're interested. Now, the last thing I did was the gradient. It's just a radial gradient. It starts off, it's almost transparent in the center, and gets more opaque towards the edges, which lightened up the whole image and made it look a lot closer to the final product. And this is what the final animation ended up being. I hope everyone's alright. We have connectivity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the actual, that's the one running. Where's that? Right here? And yeah, I flew through that. So that's it. Check me out on Twitter, my blog, on CodePen. I'm I'm also available for hire. So thanks.